My name's Tom Ross, and welcome to The Honest Entrepreneur, where I'm bringing you tried and tested advice to help your online business without any of the bullshit. Today, we're talking about when to monetize, making your first dollar, and is education worth it? Okay, so we're back with more Q&A, of course, and I think the first question is from Mark, fellow podcaster, UK blogger. Mark, what's up?
Hello. Yeah. My question is about the podcast. As you know, it's still in the early stages of in terms of audience. Got quite a few episodes under my belt now, but I want to know about monetizing it, and not really so much monetizing it, but doing it as living. So how do I get it from the smaller audience that is now about 300 people to where it could be where I could do it as a living?
That's a really great question, Mark. For me, I always tend to skew towards monetizing late. And I think you're still in the fairly early stages, as I am with this show. I think the earlier you monetize, the more you sabotage your potential gains down the line. And I always think in terms of monetization as that exponential or potentially exponential curve upwards. So I think the longer you hold back with that, the more you can actually get traction and get growth. And it's kind of like, in the social network, how they keep having the argument about adding adverts to that social network, right? In the early stages. So the argument there was they didn't want to make it uncool because they were getting so much traction and building up so much momentum for it as an app that they didn't want to kill it before it reached maximum capacity. So they ended up holding off on that and then doing it further down the line. I feel the same exact way with most things, including podcasts. And that's because if you've got a fairly small listenership, you should be focused on two things: providing insane value and really, really building connections with your existing listeners, and then focused on distribution for how to get more listeners. If your main focus is suddenly slapping an advert in their face and disrupting their listener experience before you've actually got any kind of capacity with the show, I think you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot.
I think you're right. Yeah. So when's a good time to monetize it and try and it's not even about monetizing it for me. It's more about just making it a living. I know that's sort of the same thing. But when's it good time to start thinking about it?
Personally, I would do stuff on the periphery. I know having podcast sponsors can work. I guess a caveat would be when you do eventually evolve to getting a sponsor, make sure it's a good fit. Don't be like all influencers out there who are basically using their audience by getting a lame sponsor or someone that's really incongruous to their brand, and clearly they're just in it for the money. When it's something which you really put your stamp on, it's something where ideally you'd be happy to share it irrespective of if you're being paid. And it's just kind of the serendipity of like, well, I'd share this anyway because it's awesome, but I've actually managed to strike up a partnership with them. And that's incredible. I think you need to do it in the right way. So Dan Mace, I don't know if you know him. He's a YouTuber. He's friends with Casey Neistat.
Yeah, I know Dan. Yeah, well, know of him.
So he, know him personally. Good lad. He got sponsorship kind of recently, I think, in the last year, and he was almost quite apologetic about it. But he did do it right because he positioned the sponsorship in a creative, interesting way. Instead of disrupting the content, he would make like a short film around the sponsored piece, and so it became entertaining. It became a piece of content in its own right. So I think that's a really, really big tip. And it was also something which he could stand by because it was a service that he used all the time. I think his sponsor was stock video footage. So it was something he was using for a lot of his B-roll already. So when he talked about it, it was authentic. It wasn't this random bizarre brand that he just brought in because he was trying to just get as much money squeezed out of this project as possible.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm actually, it's funny you say Dan Mace because I'm actually looking at a magazine on my desk right now with his face on it, on the cover of it. But yeah, so what sort of numbers is he at? Like when's a good time to think about it though?
I think it completely depends. There's no number I can give you where that's going to be a one size fits all, right? So it depends on your personal situation. It depends how much support you need to keep this thing going. If you are completely reliant on money to keep it going, you might want to get sponsorship a bit earlier just so that you can continue to do what you love. In my position, I'm doing this show around my day job, so I don't need the money to keep it going. So there's no way I'm going to be accepting a sponsor, certainly not for a very long time. I think, again, it comes down to not so much like, will you get a sponsor or won't you? It's like, when you do, you need to do it in the right way. That's really the key thing. And I just want to kind of reiterate the point I just made in making the sponsorship a unique and interesting piece of content in its own right. That's going the extra mile. That's respecting your listeners, because if you can do it in a way that is informative or funny or entertaining instead of just being an ad that's slapped in their face, that will make all the difference.
Okay, so looking at it more when I'm desperate for the money and I need it, then think about bringing it in and and doing it in the right way. I like that. Thank you very much.
Cool. I hope it helps, mate. And hit me up if you need any feedback on that process. But essentially, don't just accept the first sponsor to come along, right? You want to be choosy. Even if you need the money, find someone that's aligned with you in values. Find someone that's willing to actually go the extra mile and work with you to hopefully create quite a compelling creative around their brand that is going to be a good fit and is going to resonate with your audience. And it's your job to explain that it's worth them making that extra time investment. It's worth them working more hands-on with you, because not only is it going to be lower friction for your audience, it's going to convert better for them as a sponsor, and they're actually going to see bigger gains.
Nice one. Yeah, thank you very much.
Cool. Good luck, mate. So next up, Paul, who I've been chatting with a lot, actually. Paul, welcome to the show. Can you tell people a little bit about yourself and what's your question?
Thanks, Tom. So I'm from Australia. I'm working in graphic design and illustration, and I'm particularly wanting to move more and more into children's illustration. And so my question, I guess, is about that. So at the moment, I'm working freelance in graphic design illustration. I'm on the one hand, I'm after some sort of permanent part-time graphic design work while I pursue the illustration side. And so my question was if you had any advice about how to make that transition, especially when it comes to my website and my branding and really pushing that towards the illustration side. But how do you also do that while trying to get some work in graphic design? Do you create two brands or two different websites? I don't know. Yeah,
another good question, Paul. So I would argue that there is no harm in going all in, like we discussed earlier on a separate call. Go all in for what you want to be doing. Put out the work and the brand and the messaging around the kind of clients and work that you want to attract, which in your case is being an illustrator for children's books. I think if you have to continue to pay the bills by doing work alongside that, I don't think it's going to hinder you as much as you think, not having that portfolio. If anything, I view it as a negative. If you've got a portfolio that's completely slapdash all over the place and has loads of different styles, I think that will actually hold you back. I think you will be able to continue to attract the kind of work. And it's the old-fashioned way, right? So when I started doing graphic design work, that early stage pay the bills kind of work, I would be going door to door with local businesses. I would be getting referrals. I'd be going on sites like Upwork and bidding and pitching for projects. It didn't really come from my portfolio because I wasn't a big name. Unless you're getting a lot of footfall and Google traffic and tons of people checking out your portfolio, it's probably not going to be the lead generating machine that a lot of people think it's going to be. It ends up just being a static website, which, to be honest, just ends up sitting there for the most part. Really, the clients in the early stage are going to come from the grind and the work of putting yourself out there and one by one pitching them and going after them pretty aggressively. It won't just naturally happen through your portfolio, and therefore having a more focused portfolio will not hold you back in that respect, I think.
Yep. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you for that, Tom.
It's all right. Anytime, mate. Is that like completely clear, or have you got any follow-ups, or is that good?
No, that's good. So, so from what you're saying is, in terms of my online portfolio, that sort of stuff, focus on the illustration side, and in terms of graphic design work, it's responding to the job ad. That sort of more one-to-one type of work.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're getting 10 emails a week saying, "Hey, Paul, just saw your portfolio and I love your graphic design work and I really want to give you money for your graphic design work. Will you come and do projects for me?" But I'm guessing right now that's probably not the case.
Yep, that's right.
Cool. So with the work you're getting that is paying the bills, how are you currently attracting it?
Yeah, so it's through recruiters or through just job ads.
I love it. And that's absolutely going to continue, even if you go more focused with your portfolio. So hopefully that kind of answers the question.
Yep, fantastic. Thank you for that.
Love it. And I can't wait to see where you take it this year. Do you want to throw a little plug in? What's your Instagram so everyone can check you out? Because I think you're super talented.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so my Instagram is Paul Hallam Creates. Hallam is my last name. So Paul Hallam Creates.
Love it, man. Everyone go check out Paul's work. And Paul, appreciate you coming on the show. I hope you get some sleep. I think it's like gone 5 a.m. So I really appreciate you being here for the live question and answer. Don't worry about sticking around for the rest of it. I hope you get some rest, brother.
No worries. Thanks, mate. Talk to you soon.
Right. So next question is from Doris Jets, who is another very talented illustrator. Doris, what is up? Say hi to the listeners and what's your question?
Hi. Yeah, thanks for saying I'm talented, because my question is actually, from your experience in design and running your company, you deal with such a huge group of creatives. Do you find any difference between the people who have a formal art education and those that don't? Because I don't have a formal art education. Sort of in terms of what they produce, the quality of work, and I guess the success they have at the end. Sometimes I still feel like such an imposter that there's a huge gap in my experience, and I don't know if the fact that I don't have an education is the cause of that or what.
I'm so glad that you used the word imposter, because I was about to jump in with my answer and say, this sounds like our old friend imposter syndrome. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to bash formal education for a second, because I know some people that have done it and they learned a lot. It gave them some fantastic foundations and it has benefited them. That being said, I probably know a lot more people that didn't have the formal education and are killing it. Probably the most successful people I know didn't get that education and are doing incredibly well in this space. So I think it is completely imposter syndrome talking. I think it is probably fabricating as some kind of excuse to hide behind. And I'm not trying to sound harsh with that. I'm just trying to be honest. But don't even have that internal debate. That is not a reason why you should not be succeeding, because the numbers show that there are a ton of people in your position who didn't get that education and they're doing just fine.
Okay. Good to know. I was hoping for an objective answer too, and I'm glad you did. You said it in that way, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, and let's dig a little bit deeper. Why are you feeling like that? Is it simply because I have these weeks, right? I'm guessing it's just that you've had a bit of an insecure week. You've got some of that imposter syndrome. What made that bubble up in your head as like potentially the reason why things aren't getting more traction than they are?
It might actually be because there's somebody in my life who has just gotten an education and she's pretty amazing, and she's young, right? So she's kind of starting out her life, and it's just a bit of a reflection on that, I think. Sort of missing out, feeling like I've missed out, or that I am missing out or something, because I'm obviously in a different position in my life. So I guess it might be one of those moments of, what would I have done differently if I could have a do-over? But here I am, and just, trying to figure out how to move forward from where I am. Getting a formal education is really not in the cards. So I guess it was just great to kind of get some feedback on, like an objective feedback on the potential, I guess, or the reality of the possibility of success, I guess. If that makes any sense? I'm rambling again, sorry.
No, not at all. It makes complete sense. I think you know the answer. Whenever people ask these kinds of questions, you know the answer. The answer is always not to look at what other people are doing. The answer is to stop comparing yourself to others. I can tell you that and I can help revalidate that, but ultimately, I'm guessing you probably know that already.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there's a billion reasons why people don't see as much traction as they want. They might not be growing a brand consistently enough. They might not be proactive on social media. They might be scared to go and put themselves out there and produce content. They might be scared to go and pitch themselves. They might not be consistent enough in defining a style. Like, there's so many reasons, and I promise you, like, formal education is either not going to be on that list or it's going to be somewhere near the bottom. You could get anyone and pluck them out of formal education, and the people that sit there and execute and get stuff done are going to outperform the people educated or not, that sit on their hands and don't put in the work. And I think right now you're putting in the work, but it just takes time, right? You've got to keep at it. You've got to make sure you're doing the right work. You've got to learn. You've got to push your skill set, all that kind of stuff. But none of that stuff has anything to do with education.
Yeah, no, that's great. The key is to execute, to keep moving forward.
Every single time you think, like, out of the millions of people who are doing marketing and business podcasts, I couldn't give a shit about the ones that have a MBA or something like that. You know, that they're not going to beat me because of their education. My success or failure is going to come down to my talent, my execution, what I put in, the skills I have, like nothing to do with my education at all.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That helps.
Really glad to hear it. Doris, thank you for coming on the show again. Appreciate you as always. Everyone go check out Doris. Her handle is Ink and Dolly on Instagram. Be sure to check her out. And also, I'm feeling bad. I didn't plug up Mark earlier with his question. Go check out Mark. He runs the Creative Waffle podcast. If you're interested in creativity and design, which you probably are if you're listening to this show, go check him out. He does an awesome job. Cool. Thanks, Doris.
Thanks.
So next up, let me know in the comments, or if you can, I'm going to, Dave, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got Dave. I didn't know if you were going to make it. What's up, Dave?
I'm sat in the works canteen, so it shouldn't be too noisy. Hopefully everybody's gone home.
I love it. Do you mind just introducing yourself, what you're working on right now, and what your question is?
Yeah, I'm Dave. I'm trying to become a graphic designer, a career change. So my question is, basically, where would you start to get that first job, first client?
Oh, that is a great question, and we caught you on the Design Cuts Hangout earlier. Yeah, I think you were saying you haven't had any paid work yet. You've got a portfolio up, but you have yet to kind of make that first dollar, so to speak.
Yeah, that's right.
So first of all, realize the first dollar tends to be the hardest. It all gets incrementally easier after that. That first client is always the toughest one. I can share my honest truth of this in the theme of this show. And I just put myself out there. So my first clients were actually online. They were through design contests, and then they were through sites like Fiverr and that kind of thing, wherein, I got underpaid. Or actually, no, scrap that. Let's keep this on record, Marco. Let's keep this bit in. I didn't get underpaid. I got paid exactly right for my level of skill and confidence and experience. So it's far too easy to sit there and be like, oh, I deserve more than like $40 for a logo or $15 for a logo or whatever it might be. If you did deserve more than that, you would be able to charge more than that. I could only charge that much at the time because I was less experienced. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to pitch. I didn't have a network. So I probably was earning exactly what I was worth. I wouldn't stress about any of that stuff though. I would just put yourself out there. I don't care if your first client pays you $1, because as I just said, the first dollar is the hardest. So you want to close that sale. You want to get sent that money. And it's a really beautiful thing. Literally, if it is $10, Dave, it's the best feeling in the world when that shows up in your PayPal or whatever. And you're like, holy shit, a stranger just sent me money for my services. For the people that are more established, that might sound laughable. But like, I remember that feeling of a stranger has sent me money over the internet. And it changes everything because it just gets the ball rolling on what can be so much bigger than that.
Yeah, that sounds great. I just need to figure out where to try and get the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate I kind of went on a tangent of like how good it feels instead of giving you a direct answer. So as I say, I started online. So I went to Fiverr. I did design contests. You could go and do that tomorrow. You could sign up for sites like Upwork and you could bid on projects, set up a profile and be like, I've got this experience. Here's my portfolio. I want this project. And it's a numbers game where you put yourself out there and you're going to win some of them. Equally, my second phase of freelancing was I went door to door, and I would start with people I vaguely knew. It would be the local bar where I kind of knew them, or it would be like a family's friend of a friend who needed a new menu for their restaurant or something like that. But I would literally go down my high street and be like, who have I got even a Vegas connection to? And I would go in and I would do work for cheap. I would be be kind of a little bit abused as a designer. I wouldn't be that well looked after. But I would just get in and I get my hands dirty. And that's what they call paying your dues. So is it that you don't know what I'm telling you? Or is it that you know this stuff, but you're scared to do it or something like that maybe?
I think I kind of know that. Not necessarily, maybe a bit scared, yes. But
yeah, Dave, I don't mean that in a horrible way at all. I mean it because I've been there and it is a scary thing. Like I was a young kid being like, oh God, the thought of walking into a restaurant and being like, let me design your menus is like fucking torture for me. At the time, that was the most uncomfortable thing on earth. So I'm really not saying that to pull you down. I'm just trying to get in your head of like, is it that you are really lacking clarity with where to go? Or is it that you can kind of identify some of these paths and you haven't yet taken the plunge for some reason?
Yeah, a bit of both, I think. A bit of both.
Okay, so rather than just be like, that's the answer, what would help get you there? Like, have you got anyone locally? Have you got a connection of a connection? Like anyone where you can go and have that conversation locally and be like, look, I really, really want to do your leaflets, your flyers, your logo, your restaurant menus. Like, what would help get you there?
Not too many local connections, I don't think. I'll have to think about it. Okay,
and what about the online? Even if you don't have the connections, right? Go and do it anyway. Like, here's a connection. You probably have a barber shop near you. Talk to them.
For the online, I have signed up to 99 Designs. Kind of looked at a few. I think I entered one, but I've not entered any more yet. So I need to do some more of that as well.
Yeah, when I started doing design contests, I won. Can you guess what percent?
I think you've said before, but I can't remember.
I won 0. I won a big fat 0. I would enter contests all the time and I'd won 0. And then after a while of doing it, I'd win 1 in 10. And then I got better and better incrementally. And after a year or two of hammering out dozens and dozens and dozens of these, I got to a point where I was winning 50% of them. And each one of these was a few $100s. And I worked very quickly. So soon I was doing a few a month. And I started bringing in a fair amount of money at the time when I was, I don't even know, 14, something like that, 13, 14, 15. And that was huge for me. That was game changing, but realize it's a numbers game. So you're to an extent where I was, but you've done 1, whereas I did 200. Yeah. So you just got to keep going and realize 1's not going to cut it. And you have to come back to this point. You have to pay your dues. You have to take those jobs. You have to put in the work. You have to go through the numbers and you have to keep going over and over and over again, because it's the only way you're going to get better. And it's the only way you're actually going to win and convert enough of those into paid work to start getting that traction.
Yep. That sounds sensible. I think it's probably just to get a confirmation of somebody else saying it as well.
Yeah, like that's so common, right? And I'm not trying to give you a hard time, Dave. I really hope it doesn't come across like that. To be honest, I am visualizing young me as I talk to you and I'm talking to him. And because I had all these feelings when I did my first contest and I lost and I felt like shit. I want to go back in time and be like, keep going because it's going to play out okay. You just got to keep pushing through.
Yeah, that's, all right.
All right, you got it, Dave. Let me know how it goes. Please keep me in the loop when you're on contest number 12. And that's the first one that you've won. And some stranger just sent you $30 because you did a cool logo for them. Like in 5 years' time, you might look back and laugh on that. But trust me, it is the best feeling in the world when that first one happens. And I really believe you can do it. I've seen your portfolio. You're super talented. In fact, you're a lot more talented than I was when I was getting into all this stuff. So I think you're probably going to shortcut it more than I did. But yeah, you've got this and good luck, buddy.
Awesome. Appreciate you saying that.
Cool. So I think next up, we've got Smith. Smith, first of all, shout out to Smith. Smith is the perfect example of a follower. He is super active, super vocal, always entertaining in the comments, in the DMs, really, really supportive. If you want to get on someone's radar, Smith is a great example of how to do that, because I already feel like I want to give Smith the best answer I possibly can in the world to repay him for his support. So thank you for that, Smith. And I'd love it if you could introduce yourself, what you're doing, what you're all about, and what your question is for the listeners.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Tom, for that wonderful compliments. And I am Smith Bermas and I am from Philippines and I am nervous right now. So I need to rough it out. Okay. So, and I am a graphic designer and an illustrator, and I recently decided to take a career in lettering. And that's it. My question is it is more personal, Mr. Tom. So here it is. I'll ask you, what is your favorite motto in life and why is it your favorite?
My favorite model in terms of like model of thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that is
Cool. Like that.
yeah, like an ethos to live by, that kind of thing.
Yes.
I've been thinking about this. Is really good timing, Smith, and great question. Really good question, in fact. Um, yeah, lately I keep coming back to go the extra mile, and you might have noticed I've been talking about this a lot in my content. I'm such a believer of it because it maps to everything. I think going the extra mile is just putting in that extra work that most people aren't willing to do, right? And you can do that with a job application. You can do that with a client pitch. You can do that with the content you produce. You can do that with how you respond to followers and comments and DMs. You can do that with how you build a community and engage. You can do that with how you brand yourself. And an example, I think I just gave this example on the Honest Designers show, my other podcast that I do. But when I recently went on The Future, I took the time and I put in the extra work and went the extra mile to research the show, research the hosts. And I saw that Chris Do, who hosts it, kind of like has a cool sense of humor and he likes like quirky, funny things. And so I, I kind of dug through that and I found that. And then in house, we shot a bunch of ridiculous photos of the team holding up like mock ups, which we put text over. And we did this little photo shoot with the team saying like, look, mum, I'm on YouTube. And like Chris Do is so dreamy and all that kind of stuff. And so when I jumped on their YouTube live and I gave my presentation, I was going through this keynote presentation. And then we got to these slides where they're like, Chris Do is so dreamy. Look, mum, I'm on YouTube. And they all burst out laughing. Like the host started laughing so much. It was like a real kind of nice moment just to make the whole thing more friendly, set a nice tone. It was less formal. And that's like for me a perfect example of going the extra mile because that took work. I had to go and research them and their show. I researched the host. We got the team involved. We had the effort of creating the images. I put them into the presentation. Like all these steps were extra work, but by going the extra mile, it massively stood out compared to like, here's another kind of bog standard presentation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes.
So I guess my question would be, I'm going to flip this back to you, Smith. What is a way right now that you think you can go the extra mile with someone or something you're doing?
Well, it is probably to execute the ideas and the goals that I have in my mind from the past few days.
Okay, and what are those? Like, what's one key idea that's standing out right now?
Well, yeah, my one key idea right now is to upload my ever first lettering up piece with how my life went during the past year. And it's something more personal. That's why I like to do lettering now because those kind of stuff really, the words that you put into a piece and when you create pieces for lettering, the words will represent from your previous experiences or recent experiences that you might want to share and inspire other people when how you get through that certain scenario of your life. So that's it.
Okay, so I love that. I think that's a great idea. I think I got an idea for how you could go the extra mile with that. So if you're looking at the last year of your life, why don't you reach out to on Instagram or email or real life, people in your family, whatever it might be, and reach out to them and say, you've had a real impact on my last year in these ways. And I really appreciate you. So if possible, I'm doing this giant, collage piece, super detailed. And I would love to include you in some way. So have you got a couple of words that you could give me, like a little quote or a sentence that I can letter and work into this overall piece? And if you did that with, let's say, 5 to 10 people, and let's say most of those people are on Instagram, and some of them might even have bigger accounts if they're people that have inspired you, and they'd feel really honored to be part of that. So then when you put this piece together, it takes on a whole new nuance and it becomes even more interesting and unique. And then you can tag those people up and do a nice big description, like a long descriptive form summary on that Instagram post, and give like an overview of the last year, like super humble, like here's everything I've learned and how my year's gone, and here's a shout out to some of the people that made it into this piece and they were kind enough to give quotes, and I really appreciate how much they impacted me and inspired me. And you tag them up and they get a notification, and then you also go the extra mile and DM it to them and say, look, the piece you contributed to is finally ready. Here it is. Thank you again for being awesome. I appreciate everything you've done for me. They're going to be way more likely to reshare that piece compared to if it was just all about you, didn't feature any kind of external factors on your year. So imagine you get a couple of like A-listers in your space, and suddenly they're resharing on their stories.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I got to repeat that. In fact, no, let's not repeat it, Marco. Let's keep the show honest and authentic. So we got a dog going crazy where Smith's at, but that's fine. That's the nature of a live call-in show. It's fine. We're going to keep going with it. So does that make sense? Like, that's an example of how you could go that extra mile and not only create something hopefully more interesting and personal, but you could get all kinds of distribution when I'm sure these people would have a very good chance of resharing it with their bigger audiences.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And thanks for the brilliant response, Mr. Tom. I will consider it in my plans. Yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait to see it. And whenever you launch this piece, like hit me up, DM me, and I guarantee I'll reshare it. So just remind me about this conversation and I'll put it on my stories and like give you a shout out. And that's step one.
That would be amazing. And thanks, Mr. Tom. You're the king.
I appreciate you, Smith. You're the man. Thanks so much for jumping on. Have a great day. I think that's everyone. Guys, you had the best questions. I really appreciate everyone that made it on the call today. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you to everyone watching at home, listening at home, whatever you might be doing. I just appreciate you being here. I'm having a blast with this show. These guys were awesome who jumped on live, and I hope you can for a future call-in show. But yeah, have a fantastic day. Keep grinding, and I will see you soon. Hey, thanks so much for watching this episode. Really, really appreciate you being here with me. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe right here on YouTube. Remember, tick the little bell icon so that you get proper notifications. I really hope you're enjoying the show. I hope you'll stick around for the upcoming episodes. I really want to keep bringing you as much value as possible. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you guys soon.